September 8th, 1986, Oprah gives away a Pontiac to every audience member. In what would become one of her most iconic moments, Oprah Winfrey gave away a Pontiac G6 to an audience full of underpaid teachers, while she yelled, "You get a car! You get a car!" I know that's not a very good impersonation of Oprah Winfrey, but she forgot to yell, "You get a tax bill you can't afford! You get a tax bill you can't afford! You get a tax bill you can't afford." Let's talk about the debate here on
The Line. I'm Steve. The Line. I'm Steve Jacob,
and I'm John Kassir.
and here we are. We're talking about. Well, we're talking about a lot of stuff today.
Well,
But
here's a little tidbit. Did you know that my wife won a car?
was she on that show?
She wasn't on that show, no. She was at a charity event that Elton John threw and won a A7 Audi.
Yes,
You can imagine what the tax bill.
yeah, sure. she sold the car to pay for the taxes,
And then paid off all her credit cards with the rest of the money. But
there you go.
I mean, never got to keep the car.
Well, that's an A7. That's a nice car. Did you watch the debate last night?
I did watch the debate last night.
That was something.
It was entertainment at its best. And let me tell you something. It's unbelievable just to watch the things that come out of people's mouths of what they saw and what they didn't see. And I'm like, okay, all right. It's like people are like, well, I need to see more. I said, of what? Who would you like to see more of? Well, I'd like to see more of Kamala Harris before I decide. And I was like, but didn't you see enough of Trump to decide?
Yeah, exactly. Not to mention, it's like, yeah, we needed to see 9 minutes more of Kamala Harris because that's the amount of time he prattled on after his time was up. But, I wonder now, I want to know how you feel about this. It seemed to me, at first, it was pissing me off that was happening, that they kept turning his mic back on. And then I started to think maybe they're doing this on purpose to let him hang himself, because I think he totally hung himself. He just went on about like ridiculousness that had nothing to do with anything.
When they were negotiating and I think most people probably know this who have knew anything about the debate prior, is that when they were negotiating the terms of the debate, um, the Harris campaign, Democratic campaign, wanted the mics to be left on because they knew he would hang himself. So, you know,
Yeah, I heard that too. When it was interesting when it was still Biden and they were negotiating, they wanted the mics turned off. But then when it was Harris, she's like, "Nah, keep the mics on. Let this idiot."
she's a litigator.
Yeah, yeah,
She
she knows what'll
set him up
happen.
she set him up for every trap that you would want him to. And then for somebody to go, "Well, I don't know if she's, strong enough to play the president." It was like to play the president, they said, to be the president. I'm just like going, "Are you kidding me?" So you're telling me that the guy who's, the only person in history to bankrupt a casino is, is stronger, willed to get things done. I mean, you just heard that everybody who worked under him said he was worthless, that he didn't know anything about what he was supposed to be doing. He
No.
just, he's a fighter. If Donald Trump hit that energy towards, you know, good and really getting things done that actually mattered with people in mind besides himself, can you imagine what he could get done? But he's incapable of that, sadly.
That's a very good argument. You just put that so well. It's like, yeah, I mean, this is a talented politician. This is a talented person, but when you are afflicted with malignant narcissism, none of that talent goes to the greater good.
None of it. People were like, they interviewed people afterwards, and they're like, well, you know, uh, I guess I'm going to vote whoever winds up being the lesser of two evils. I go, what two evils? I mean, Kamala Harris has said out what's evil about her. She's trying her best to try to look after other people. Her career shows that that's what she does. She was a, attorney general, for Christ's sake. I mean, you sit there and look at these different people, and then you go, but then there is sadly pure evil on the Trump side. The guy is evil. I mean, he goes, he's done evil things to other people, and you know, loves other evil people. It's
Well, you know,
it is kind of like Doctor Strange love.
evil people who need evil people are the evilest people.
It's amazing to me, and it's sad that our country and our political base has wound up in a position where somebody has to defend somebody like Donald Trump to defend their side. I wish they had a better choice. I wish they had a better choice. And I honestly, I believe Kamala Harris is a fabulous choice. I mean, that's just me personally. I can't tell people how to vote or what their needs are. But guess what? I can tell you one thing. That guy is it's gonna be, when he said it was gonna be a bloodbath if the Democrats won, and now he's claiming he meant that was going to be having to do with the economy. I was like, no, it's going to be
It's
a
not what he said.
bloodbath. I know. Of course, well, that's what he thinks he's trying to tell you. He said, but it's really so much the other way. It's going to be a shit show if he gets elected. It's going to be a shit show.
I agree. Yeah, I did hear that the polls. And remember, the polls were way off when he ran against Hillary Clinton, and the polls are way off again, and they're way off in the other direction. I did hear some commentators talking. They said, "Yeah, I think we're going to see in mid-October that she's double digits ahead of him. We're going to see that again." So, I mean, that doesn't get you over the electoral line, but I think she went a long way last night in winning over Pennsylvania. I think she was very succinct about her views on fracking. Um, yeah, I feel like and then Taylor Swift endorsed her like right after the debate. And that's an interesting development because remember, she's from Pennsylvania. And so she holds sway in there. And
She
that's
has
the youth vote.
298 million Twitter followers alone. I mean, X followers or whatever you call it, which is amazing. I mean, it's just, I mean, and for her to endorse Kamala Harris, probably to a bunch of people who may not even have registered to vote without her endorsement, is an amazing thing. I mean, it's an amazing thing on either side, but it's, listen, our politics are our politics, and we don't hide those. But at the same time, there's a bigger picture here, and that's that, you know, uh, this election involves a scary proposition. That's a gamble. If Donald Trump gets elected, I just, people are like, to call both sides the lesser of two evils, is just,
That is such old rhetoric,
it's
though. I
terribly
mean,
old rhetoric. It's terribly old rhetoric, but it means something now, because there actually is a candidate who's not just inept, he's fucking evil. I'm sorry. That's the truth.
well, if anybody knows evil, I suppose it's the Crypt Keeper.
Which somebody had posted. One of the oh my gosh, one of the commentators on was it MSNBC or one of the CNN, I don't know, said that Donald Trump was becoming the Crypt Keeper, and I was like, how dare they compare compare me to Donald Trump? How dare they? The Crypt Keeper is such a fun-loving guy and positive. That's what gets me about him. He's so negative. He's such a negative guy. He's such a bully and a negative guy. Why would you want to vote for such a negative guy? Has no positive outlook. He says such terrible things about every aspect of this country. It's like,
John,
and I'm going to fix it. And then he goes, well, why didn't you fix it during your 3.5 years? Why didn't you fix anything during the 4 years you were in office? I hoped he did. I didn't vote for him, but I hoped he would do the things he said he was going to do, the good things.
okay. Well, listen, I need you to get off the fence about this. None of your waffling around. But listen, I see a magic opportunity here. I think we should start making videos with you with a Trump wig on doing the Crypt Keeper.
I had conceived of doing when he first was running for president of doing a rodeo clown who was who was Donald Trump with
I'm
the
not
wig.
kidding, though. John, I'm not kidding. I think the door is open. I think there's a viral thing. This could like really help your career, actually. I know you're not taking me seriously, but I am dead fucking serious.
You've heard of Swifties? Well, it's time for the Crypties. That's right. Trumpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Trumpty Dumpty had a great fall. All his spray tans and all his lies couldn't put Trumpty Dumpty back together again.
Yeah, but I think that if you did like even excerpts from the debate as the Crypt Keeper, but you got to be made up like Donald Trump a little bit. Okay. And it's too bad we can't use the puppet with a Trump wig on, because that would be the best.
Well, we could do a photograph with him looking like that and do the voice with it. It doesn't actually have to animate.
But wait a minute, the whole thing about eating dogs and all of that. I mean, I'm telling you, John, this is comedy gold.
Trust me, I've thought about it.
Well, it's time to put it into action. If you want to do it, really, I'm serious now. If you want to do something in this election that makes a difference, that moves the needle, you start making fun of him as the Crypt Keeper. You start giving his speeches just as the Crypt Keeper. I'm fucking telling you, this is huge. This is huge. I think that we should do a segment on this podcast. Come on, you're with me on this, aren't you?
I'm looking it up so that I can see what I can come up with. Let's see.
And look what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. Not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. Been there, done that. And let me tell you something, Don. Those people are not the connoisseurs that I am. In the sewers, yes. Connoisseurs, no. You, Donald, are a liar. Trumpty Dumpty sat on a wall. A wall built by Mexico.
It works. It works. I do think that the gold here is really in just repeating what he said and not the Humpty Dumpty stuff. I just think that it is, and those little quips you said
Oh, I'm
about.
sorry. You're going to edit my comedy now? You might as well just be a podcast called The Heckler.
I need you to go. I need you to go through the joke.
See, Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks.
I'm trying to make you. Yeah, I'm trying to make you even more famous than you already are.
Boy, who needs that kind of fame?
Well,
I've got my spray tan, I've got my orange hair, and I'm ready to go.
oh yeah, that's a good one. Okay, let's move on for the moment. We're coming back to this.
James Earl Jones, the revered actor who voiced Star Wars villain Darth Vader, starred in Field of Dreams and, of course, many other films and Broadway shows, and is an EGOT winner, Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony winner, died this week in his home in Dutchess County, New York. He was 93 years old. God bless him. 93 years old. Sign me up. You know, I have so many friends who over the years got to work with James Earl Jones. You know, the actor amassed nearly 200 screen credits during his brilliant 60-year career. Starting in some early 60s TV guest roles. And then, of course, Stanley Kubrick's 1964 classic Dr. Strangelove.
The great. He played. Didn't he? He did the. It was either The Great White Hope or Requiem for a Champion or whatever it was, or for a heavyweight. Yeah. It was funny. I saw a picture today of him like training. Well, so when Muhammad Ali came in, and there was this great black and white picture. I don't know who took it, of those two together, and him sort of fake hitting the real champ. You know. But if you look at that picture, I mean, when he was young, he was trim and he was muscular and he was not what you think of when you think of James Earl Jones, you know, that kind of older, kind of filled out guy. I also read this other thing today, how he basically, they credit him with a resurgence of baseball fans because of Field of Dreams.
Wow.
Yeah, he gives that speech in the end of Field of Dreams.
Build it and they will come.
Yeah, and I had a friend who put this thing on Facebook who said they were working when they were right out of school in Washington D.C. on a show that he was doing that was headed for Broadway, and he was like an intern running around like doing stuff, but he was after work in the bar, and he's just sitting at the bar, and James Earl Jones comes in and sits next to him, and he's my friend had turned to him and said, "Mr. Jones, my name is Mark, and I really admire your work." And James Earl Jones said, "Call me Jimmy."
Call me Jimmy.
Call me Jimmy. And he said they talked the whole night. And he said he was the nicest guy in the world.
He was a mensch. You know, my friend Ari Gross had done Soul Man, you know, with C. Thomas Howell, and they were, you know, supposed to be law students and the whole thing. And so Ari had this great scene where he got to, litigate as a student in front of James Earl Jones, and he was so great to them working together. And then some years later, James Earl Jones got a movie. He's playing a Harvard law professor, and he has one of his students that's supposed to be like a law assistant or whatever, and he requested Ari from having worked together in that movie.
And so Ari went on the set, and he was he was sitting. He came on the set, and the first day, and I don't know if it was the first AD or one of the ADs came up to him and said, "So have you met um, Mr. Jones?" And James Earl Jones walks over and goes, "Yes, he was my student at Harvard."
That's
And
great.
and never said anything more. And I mean, that informed the relationship that they wound up doing in the movie too, which was really cool. They kind of like didn't drop it, yeah, from what I hear. But a really, really kind of a neat story. One day we'll get Ari on here to tell that story.
Oh, I look forward to that. That's cool. Yeah, it's I mean, he's 93. You can't really say, well, he was taken too soon because he wasn't taken too soon.
No,
But in any event, it's a huge loss for Hollywood.
of course. I mean, what a legacy he left behind, though, and we'll always have that to remember him by, and have him live on, with his work. I mean, it's one of the beautiful things about being part of our industry is that your work, hopefully, you've done some work that lives on with people. You know, of course, I had to play a guy who lives on because he's dead.
Well, when you think of that, you got the best of both worlds going on there, John. Here,
That's right.
you live on in this life and the afterlife.
That's right. You've got a long life ahead of you, but an even longer death.
Oh boy. So
You're fired. You're fired. That's the problem with the Democratic Party. They never fire anybody.
Well, that's because we hire the right people in the first place, Donald. I can't believe he had that as an argument. It's like, I had to fire them all. Yeah, I mean, why would I keep them? I was like, well, you hired them, so it must say something about your hiring.
your firing skills are only surpassed by your hiring deficiencies.
This is not a game show, Donald. It's not a game show.
Yeah.
It's a freaking government and people's life and livelihood and government for the betterment of our nation. I just don't get it. I don't get it. I never will.
No, nobody's going to get it other than it's just this tribal impulse, and you decide what tribe you're in if you're a Republican or a Trumper anyway, not a Republican. But if you decide that you are backing Donald Trump, that is your tribe, and it just doesn't matter what he does. He can be convicted of 5,000 felonies, which is not out of the realm of possibility. Um, and he's still going to be your guy. And it's like, okay, but being your guy is not a policy, is the problem. It does nothing. And you can say that other people are socialists or this, that, or the other thing. I'm surprised. The only thing that really didn't get said last night from Kamala Harris is, look, this guy is just trying to stay out of jail. He just wants his convictions to go away. He wants all this legal trouble to go away. And that's why he wants to be president, because then he can make it go away. That's his whole motivation. He doesn't serve the people. He doesn't give a shit about the people.
I know. It's amazing. Although he didn't call her a socialist last night, he called her a Marxist.
I know, which is, to me, that's another mistake. It's like, okay, a Marxist. Okay, I can tell you that most voters in the United States don't even know what a Marxist is.
No
All
idea.
right?
People turn their heads like a dog looking at a fan, and that's
A socialist, you have some inkling of what a socialist is, but since
yeah,
we
because
live
it's a
in
bad word. It's a bad word to call people.
it's a bad word to call people. But if you grew up and went to grade school in a democracy and middle school in a democracy, your civics classes did not teach Marxism. So people generally don't know what the hell it is,
Yeah.
other than, "Ooh, it must be bad." It's a stupid argument. It's just every single argument that they come up with is a stupid argument.
Yeah.
So let's go on to our next story.
FilmLA issued a pair of updates regarding regional film production activity. The first of these reports examines on location filming in the second calendar quarter of 2024. The second report examines stage based production during the first half of calendar year 2023. Well, if you want to click on that and read about this, it just is, well, tell them, Steve, from your point of view, who handles these people that are working these jobs.
Uh, I mean, there's lots of facts and figures in that report. The really relevant ones are that over the last 5 years, and remember that includes the pandemic, that includes the strikes, um, but they don't explain the whole thing. Those two instances. They inform it a little bit, but production in Los Angeles is down 33% in the aggregate over the last 5 years. And also that includes the huge bump that came after COVID, where production days went through the roof. So, the average is correct. And I don't even think it's 33%. I think it's more. I think that this is I don't yeah, I can see what they based it
What, like
on.
40, 50%?
Between 40 and 50% is shooting in LA is what we're talking about, not shooting days as a whole in the industry. It's just it's way up there. We were talking this week around here, and there was only one like stage shoot that was going on in LA, that a multi-camera like situational comedy sitcom shoot going on in LA. Which, when you think about stages and how things work, and there aren't a lot of big movies here either, the studios, the backlots are very, very, very quiet. So when you have this kind of trend, you have to look at it and go, well, okay, what are we going to do about it? And I firmly believe that the answer lies with Sacramento, with Governor Newsom, with the state legislature. We have a very anemic um, incentive program here, 330 million annually, which is not enough. That is the catering budget at Netflix. So when you're competing with Georgia, who has no cap, no cap means it doesn't matter how many projects go there, they are going to do a 40% tax rebate on those projects below the line and above the line. While California, that's correct, it's only below the line in California. So it's 330 million below the line. Okay. So in Georgia, it's unlimited above and below the line. So your $20 million George Clooney salary, that is you can get a tax rebate on that.
I just don't understand why they would think that any other way, because just say, oh, well, we're giving away too much of it and then we're not going to get any money. It's like, no, no, no. You're losing all of it. Nothing from nothing is nothing. At least you're getting a good amount of something and building it to a huge something.
That's right. And within that report, it also states that for every dollar that California puts in, the state of California, they get back $24.40. That is a 2,400% return on revenue. So it's like the math is pretty damn easy. It's like, I don't even know why this is a discussion, other than I believe, because remember, in California, you're talking about basically 150,000 to 250,000 industry jobs. Um, But it's more than that. It's much, much more than that. Because when you think, let's take an average. Let's say it's 200,000 jobs in the film industry directly in Southern California. That's fine. But if you let this atrophy to the point, you're a state of 30 million people. If you let that atrophy to the point where the tourists stop coming to Hollywood because there's no there, then that's massive money. And you have to think that financing the film industry is a multi-pronged thing. Not only is it not only the state's largest exports, but the country's largest exports. That's number one. The tourist the tourist money that comes into Southern California because of the entertainment industry is massive. And okay, just for example, years ago, I had some relatives come into town. They wanted to go to Universal. It's the only time I went on the Universal Tour tram. Okay, we went on the Universal Tour tram. And in the middle of this, there's a red convertible, and Tony Shalhoub is in the convertible shooting a scene from Monk. Okay. And the tram went wild. It's like, me, I've been on 100 backlots. That doesn't mean that much to me, but to the other tourists who came to at the hopes of seeing something like that, it was a memory. It became an experience of a lifetime. And those things only happen. That's part of the magic of Hollywood. Those things only happen if you're shooting in town. They do not happen if you are shooting in Bulgaria. So to think, well, it only affects, Southern California and the glitterati and whatever you want to call it. No, it doesn't. It bleeds everywhere through the state economy. And if you don't think tourism is involved, is not involved in that, you are incorrect.
Oh, forget it. Look how much money they make off of anything that gets televised when it's a big sporting event or one of the Democratic or the Republican convention or the Olympics or any of those things. There's small versions of that going on every day in Hollywood.
Yes, that's correct. And you have to figure in that the tax base of that as well. Because would I love to not be behind the TMZ tourist bus all the time? Yeah, I would like that. But you know what? It serves its purpose, and it brings tax revenue to the state. And if you start to affect the tourist industry because you have let the shooting, the production industry atrophy, then you are talking about hotels. You are talking about car rentals. You are talking about airfares. You are talking about multitudes and multitudes and multitudes of restaurants. And let's face it, tourists don't come to Southern California to look at the oil garricks. They come here to see if they can Tony Shalhoub or John Kassir or somebody. That's why they come.
Oh yeah, forget it. They go nuts just seeing a guy dressed up like Captain Jack in front of the Chinese theater. I mean, they go nuts, and it's not even really Johnny Depp, and they go nuts. Oh, please take a picture of me. It's funny because I've always loved that phenomenon of that. I did a episode of Hot in Cleveland, and I was supposed to be the Pope, and they were shooting me from behind. You could see from the front, you could see I'm not the Pope, but they did my hair gray, blah, 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 I look like the Pope from behind, and I was doing, the impersonation of him, and I'm supposed to be on a date with Betty White. So I got to spend the week hanging out with Betty White, sitting at a table, talking about animal rights and all this stuff. The whole week we had an amazing time. She was in her 90s then. God bless her. What a sweet woman. What an amazing, oh my God. And when the audience came in, the cameras turned on, she was unbelievable. She was unbelievably funny and wonderful. But I had more people want to take a photo with me dressed up as the Pope than anything I've ever seen. I was like, "Oh my god, I had no idea." And people are like, "Can I take a picture with you? My mother would go nuts if she saw me take a picture with the Pope." I go, "You know I'm not the Pope, right?" "Yeah, but come on, man, take a picture with me as the Pope," you know? I was like, it was bigger than Santa Claus, it was bigger than Spider-Man, it was bigger than Captain Jack, it was bigger than, anybody, you know? And these were people that were working on the lot. This was not like just tourists that were on the
Yeah.
lot.
John, take that concept and then make it exponential when you talk about the tens of hundreds of thousands of people that come to Southern California to for that, just in hopes of that kind of experience. They'll look at the gates of some movie star's house.
Yeah,
All right.
I know.
Do you think that, if you're not shooting here, if those people are never here, if that stuff isn't happening here, what are the tourists coming for? It doesn't make sense anymore. They're gonna ride around an empty Universal backlot. What kind of fun is that?
Well, I mean, we've had this discussion on a big level about, why this business. If you're gonna run the business into the ground, where the things that are attractive about it, that are, let's use the word magic. Because let's say they call movie making magic because you're doing the magic of
Mhm.
movie making. And
That's right.
that magic is what people want. That's what attracts them to want to sit in a theater or sit at their home now and watch the magic on the screen that takes them away from whatever is happening in their lives, or makes them relate to what's happening in their lives, or all the wonderful things that, the movie making and television do. And to say, I'm not going to pay for that magic because we're just worried about the bottom dollar. It's going to disappear. You're no longer going to have an audience that wants to watch it because you're no longer making magic. But now, as what you're talking about, it can make sense in dollars and cents to them to do
Of
this.
course. It's like, you can't think of like the initial outlay of that tax rebate. It's like a perpetual motion car. Okay, it's like once you get going, because if you approve $1 billion worth of projects a year, that's at $24.40 per dollar. That's 24.4 billion in return. If you go to 2 billion, that's 48 billion. You are not only paying for the next year's rebates, you're paying for all kinds of stuff. You're paying for education. You're paying for infrastructure and roads. It's criminal to let this go on any longer. It's ridiculous. It's not just the people who are directly affected in the crews and the caterers and all of the infrastructure that Hollywood needs. It's it's bigger than this.
Let me ask you, Steve, are
It's
you the one that put together all this information together? I know you could probably look it up, but to put it, you put it together so that we can understand it, which is really great. But I'm just asking because I want to know who's actually like presenting this to the people who need to hear it, who make these
Well,
decisions.
I had a conversation this morning, and this is now a discussion among the guilds and unions in town of how to approach Sacramento and really try to ram something through. Mayor Bass in Los Angeles put together this entertainment cabinet to study the issue. I don't really feel those things have any immediate effect, and we're running out of time.
Yeah, they're always too late. They're always too
Unfortunately, yeah,
late.
they're too late. They're 5 years too late on that. But we're running out of time as far as what needs to get done and when it needs to get done. Too much infrastructure is in atrophy. for the entertainment industry. Too many people are getting out of the business or moving away because they can't make a living here anymore. And the only fix for it is a huge influx from Sacramento. And it comes in the form of tax rebates. It comes in the form of no cap tax rebates. That is the fix for that. There's really no other way to do it. Because if they don't do it, LA in 10 years is going to mimic Detroit. It's going to look just like Detroit. And that I don't think anybody wants. I feel like the movie industry is part of our national pride. As much as maybe the flyover red states resent the coasts, I think they're proud of that we export our culture to the rest of the world and democracy to the rest of the world because you can make anything you want here through the entertainment industry. There's so many. This is like people tend to be myopic about this issue, but it is so broad that it needs very serious attention. And the I guess the other thing that Sacramento looks at, they look at it kind of like they can't look at it the way labor looked at it last year. Netflix and the studios, they're making so much money, some of that should be ours. And I have a feeling that the legislature looks at it as this is Netflix's problem and they should fund it. No, they shouldn't. They're capitalists, they're not altruists. They will go and make movies where it's most cost effective to make movies where they get the biggest bang for their buck. And if California wants to keep making movies, they need to make that place here.
Hey, look, they pushed out a bunch of other industry here. Look how many. Look how many. The Silicon Valley type industry that's left here. There's still a lot here, because they're making so much money and doing so well. They're like, you know what? We're going to get back to California. It's been good to us. They don't have to stay here. Places like Apple, the film industry on some level has to stay here, and so it's a different kind of thing. To say I'm not going to give that back to them because it's not worth it is one thing, but to say that to the entertainment industry that is especially Southern California, and I think a lot of people up in Sacramento don't understand it because it's far away. We helped vote Arnold Schwarzenegger into office as a Republican here in California because we thought that he would be active in wanting to bring back work that was leaving
And you know what?
back then.
But he
tried.
tried. He tried,
He
and
tried.
he got blocked at every corner.
Exactly. And that's was his description of trying to put up with people who just don't understand how important it is just because they're Northern California and we're Southern California. I'm just like, come on, guys. This is not a political thing. This is freaking economic, and it makes sense economically for you to do this. Of course, years later, they finally decided to do it on such a small level. It did bring back some production, but nothing like nothing like you would want it to. Not even close.
I didn't. It's like 330 million is maybe 3 Marvel movies, but
Or maybe two
if you
now.
want to make, yeah, 2 now. If you want to make 200 films a year, you better go no cap because that's the only way that you are going to get a good amount of that production back in California. It's the only way.
All these other places, they gave all these other places an opportunity for them to build an infrastructure to be able to do everything that we can do here. And all the money's gone. All the money's gone.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm back to my perpetual motion.
Well, you need to run for office.
Well, No, I don't.
you at least have to put together a forum help put together a forum for people to present this properly.
Well, I have definitely put myself out there to make myself available for that, but that needs to come. I really feel it needs to come from the unions and the
Of
guilds.
course.
Those are the people with, and even the film commission, the tourism board. It needs to come from a variety of different directions, and
Yeah, but to get them
it
on the same
just.
page is never easy either. So, which is sad because that's what it needs to be. But at the same time, you can't go half cocked and be um, confrontational about it either. You just have to present it and say, "Listen, we can all do this. We can all do this together." And why wouldn't you? We're giving you an opportunity to do it. It's everything that you do on some level is an experiment, but this one makes sense. And if you're not willing to do the experiment, the alternative is a bad scene.
Yeah, I completely agree. The alternative is a bad scene because I don't know.
Only difference it'll be between here and Detroit is the sound stages don't have windows to throw rocks through. It's just like,
Well, Michigan for a while did become a hub. They did have a good incentive program. It's not as good as it was, so not as much goes there anymore. It's you can tell how much how much production is going to come to you specifically by your incentive. And when you're competing with the European Union, who offers great incentives, then not only that, you're participating with Georgia, great incentives, Louisiana, great incentives.
Canada.
The Canadian thing is a little different. I don't know how their incentives work or even if they have them, but the US dollar is so good against the Canadian dollar that it makes it worth it by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, that's what's happening now. Is it used to be if you wanted to do a production on the cheap, you went up there and you hired local. Now they're figuring out that they can do it just as cheaply, flying people in from the US for the heads of department, which they're doing.
Right. Same as the actors.
Yeah. Gaffers, grips, uh, actors with what, 10 lines or less? No, they're not traveling. Those people aren't traveling.
Forget it. No, they hire them all there. I mean, anybody that I knew that had dual citizenship, or could either married into Canadian or bought a Canadian citizenship, which you could do not so long ago, did it, and they're working in Canada. And a lot of people I know did the same, moving to Georgia, or places like that, where Austin for a while was doing a lot of filming and that kind of thing. But they weren't getting paid as much. But the fact that they were getting work kept them on screen, which got them other work, which you never know. You build it from there. You get some good parts. All of a sudden, you are making some decent money, and all of a sudden, you're going wherever they're shooting.
Well, I don't have a good segue to get out of this.
It's just tumbleweed, the tumbleweed blowing its way, tumbling tumbleweed, making its way through ghost town Hollywood in crickets.
Well, if you want to read all of the data on this, you can go to filmla.com, or I covered it on my personal blog, which is Agent on the Loose at Substack. So I don't even know if it's called .substack. Go to Substack, look up Agent on the Loose, and you'll find it. I just wrote something called Hollywood Nomads, and all of the data and all of the arguments are there. So,
where is all the film gone? Long time passing. Hollywood Nomads by Steve Jacob.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Line. As always, you can find us wherever you listen to your podcasts, and please consider following us on all socials at The Line Pod. You may also find additional thoughts on the industry at my Substack. Search Agent on the Loose at substack.com.